Today I thought I'd make a sort of overview of my small 5 acre property that I live on and also hunt. As you can see, my house is right over here, and I have a very large apple tree, one of three on the property. The deer actually do come to this one, even though it's close to the house here. But back to the point is that when I was looking to buy a property, I wanted to find a house with at least 5 acres, preferably more, that I could potentially hunt. And I looked online, YouTube, for to see if I could find other people that maybe have successfully hunted a small 5 acre property, and and to see what they've maybe done to the property to make it better, and if it was even worth it, if they were successful with that amount of land. I do hunt public land a bunch still, but surprisingly, this 5 acres is actually pretty good. I'll show some clips of some really decent bucks that I've had over the last couple of years that have passed through here. I haven't had an opportunity at any of them. Hopefully, turn that around this year. But again, I just thought I'd do a little overview and just to show that sometimes 5 acres is enough. It just really depends on the 5 acres, where it is, what's around it, what maybe you can do to make it as best of a property as you can. And again, just thought I'd just make this little video and go over it. From here, I'm going to turn the camera around and actually tilled up my yard, and it's maybe not the prettiest thing in the world, but I um, destroyed my yard for a food plot. All in the name of deer hunting. And so I'm just gonna go over to that first blind over here and just sort of talk about that a little bit. Right now, I am in the blind that's right in my yard here with the food plot that I tore up my yard for. And as you can see, I got the door open because it's really hot one today. It's August here in Wisconsin. The season starts next month here. But again, the food plot's right here behind me. Um, the road is right beyond that. Um, I put I planted some corn along the edge of the food plot on that side to as more of like a screen. I didn't do it for the corn per se. I just did it as a sort of screen, so the deer feel a little bit more comfortable coming out to this food plot. We will see if that works. Just a little barrier from the food plot and the road and my house. Now the deer were already coming out to this food plot when I had it last year without the screen. And there's also 3 apple trees in my yard here, so the deer were always kind of coming to this spot just for those. But some people might see that as like a sign that they don't have to do anything as far as screening. But I feel like a big mature buck is likely not going to come out in daylight when there's a house right there and there's a county highway right there. Now, a mature buck still might not, but at least it increases my chances a little bit. I'm hoping. So the food plot is like a quarter acre. I tore it up, made my yard look, maybe not the greatest, and maybe a food plot and a deer blind right in your yard is not the most appealing thing, but it's what I do for deer hunting. Deer hunting is the number one priority. Um, I don't care about the house, how it looks. It's a nice house, but you know, you get the point. So it's a soybean food plot. Well, it's a failed soybean food plot because we didn't get the rain we needed. There's some soybeans in there, but I went a couple weeks ago and threw out some brassica seed, overseeded it. I put like an acre and a half worth of seed on a quarter acre, um, and it's coming up a little bit. So hopefully there's a decent food plot that I'll have behind me in this yard here. Um, so this was what I would call the safest blind to hunt. I'll hunt this um, on days that maybe I'm not as worried about the wind, or the wind isn't good for the other spots. And this spot, I just kind of will just get in here because in my mind, I feel like it's in my yard. The deer are used to human scent and just human, you know, activity in this yard here. So I'll hunt this blind in that situation. The other thing I want to bring up um, is that all my blinds, all the spots I hunt on my property are all blinds. I don't hunt any tree stands. And the reason for that is not just because, blinds are nice and they're comfortable and maybe considered a little bit of a lazy way to hunt. It's specifically for the point that in a blind, I feel like I have a better chance of not spooking deer. That is the main factor, the main thing I'm focused on when hunting a 5 acre property is that I don't spook deer. Because if I blow up this 5 acres, then it's done, I mean, I hunt public land anyways, but I'd rather keep this spot, make the deer feel comfortable coming through here. So all my spots, the access is important. Obviously, this one is from my yard, not that big of a deal. But the other one that I'm gonna go to next, I come off the side of the hill from the side of my house and sneak into the blind. And then when I'm done, I sneak back up. I don't go anywhere else. And then the last blind I'm gonna go to um, will be on the other side of the ridge. You'll see I access it from the county highway, typically walking or with my electric bike. And with that blind, same thing. I come in off the road. I go one way, get up into the blind, and go right back out the same way. And these blinds, the other factor for these blinds is that they are sort of on the fringe of my property. Like, I'm not going into my property. This one's right next to the yard. The other one's right off the side of the hill from the house. The other one is right off the road there. So I'm not intruding. That's very important to this whole small acre property. So I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully, I explained everything the way I wanted to. And I'm going to go down to the clover plot that I put in next to the pond there. Right now, we are at my bottom clover plot here on my small property. I don't know if you can see the blind behind me, but up the hill behind that is my house, and that's my access to that blind, which is very important. I just come off the top of that hill, sneak down, go right into that blind, and when I'm done with hunting for that day, I go right back up that hill. I never come down into this clover food plot. Um, you'll notice there's also a pond back there. I will show other clips. So there's a clover food plot down here along with a small pond, and up behind the camera is another ridge. My property is basically a ridge with a house on top. Comes down to this bottom here, goes right up another ridge, and I have another blind up there that I will go to and explain that setup and how I hunt that. Here I'm taking my side by side over to this next blind. In a hunting situation, I would come along this same path, but I would use my e-bike for a more stealthy approach, which goes back to the important key factor to hunting a small 5 acre property is your access and your approach. This is the best access for this blind through the least amount of woods, the least amount of cover, and through no bedding area. So my potential to spook deer is at a minimum with this approach. This blind here is what I call the He-Man Woman Haters Club for the obvious reasons. And this blind is up on the other side of the ridge from where my blind is, that's overlooking the clover plot and the pond. This is a little travel route for deer from the bigger woods of my neighbor's property to across the road. There's an alfalfa field, and they travel a lot up on top of this ridge right past this blind. So that's what this setup is for on my 5 acres here. Here is an overview of my property. Basically everything you can see here is my 5 acres. The 3 brown pins are the 3 blinds I have set up, and the areas outlined are the food plots I put in. What you can't see off to the west are houses all along the highway, about 100 yards from that blind on the left. Now I bring that up because the reason why that blind on the left is a good spot, and it's a spot I already knew was going to be good before purchasing this property, is because that's the widest area of woods for the deer to cross the highway to get to farm fields. And along with the pond being there, I knew this property was probably going to be decent for hunting. So much so that I knew right where to put my first camera, which was where that blind is on the left, on top of that ridge. And within one day of having the camera up there, I already had pictures of nice bucks crossing through there and going across the road. Again, I just want to show this property because it goes to show that sometimes 5 acres is enough if it's the right 5 acres, and that there are ways to improve even a small property such as this by putting in these food plots in these specific locations, and just overall doing whatever you can with hinge cutting, etc., to just make it a decent spot to hunt even on a small property. I thought I would close out this video in the third and final blind I have on this property. And this is the blind that's overlooking the food plot and the pond, the one that I sneak in from my house. And I know the majority of this video is me rambling away in the first blind. So I'm going to try to close this out with a few things I think I forgot to mention. So both of these ridges that I own are covered in oak trees, which obviously is a very cool thing. Just thought I would bring that up. I don't know if I mentioned that my yard has apple trees in it. I think I did. Um, Also, the trail cameras I use on this property, because it's such a small property, what I did was I purchased Google Wi-Fi access points to strengthen my Wi-Fi. I actually, right next to me on this chair is one of the Google access points. I have an extension cord running from my house. And to get back to the point, the cameras I'm using are actually security cameras, Wi-Fi security cameras, and they notify me just like a cell camera would that something is walking in front of it, and I can get a live view. Now I know some people might see that as maybe a little too far technology wise, maybe unethical or not fair chase, but I don't personally sit there and watch the cameras because first of all I don't want them to drain the battery, but I also just don't. I don't just sit there and do that. That's besides the point. You know, the other thing I didn't mention is that along these ridges, I did a lot of hinge cutting to try to create some bedding to try to hold deer, and it's actually working. Unfortunately, maybe a little too good because every time I come down um, to this bottom here, deer run off. So I have to be a little bit more careful, maybe figure out a better way to access quieter. Um, it's a good thing and a bad thing. The other thing I didn't mention is the clover food plot next to the pond here. It wasn't an opening when I started out. It was woods, so I did clear that out. And honestly, the only reason that I did put the food plot there is because it's the only place I could. It's the only flat place I own besides the yard, which probably explains why I tore up my yard in the first place. I only had 2 options for food plots. So yeah, the clover. The other thing to mention is that surprisingly, because it's a bottom and it's really wet, I was worried about what I could plant there and what would grow. And clover grows really good in wet areas. I'm sure people know that. I didn't. I was trying to find information on that, and I was looking for something to plant, and I just went with it, and it worked. And I've had clover growing in puddles, so um, it definitely grows good in wet areas. I'm not sure if there's anything else to really mention. I'm just going to. There's about an hour until dark, so I decided to just come down here and sit in this blind. And there has been deer coming down to this clover in the evening, so I'm just gonna sit in here and see what comes out. Maybe I can get a look at a nice velvet buck or something. Um, Other than that, I'm going to be doing a lot of hunting on this 5 acres this season, and hopefully I could bring some more interesting content to share and my experiences with hunting this property and how it's working. Hopefully, I can be sitting behind a really nice buck this year. So, I would appreciate it if you would stick with me, and I hope that this video was beneficial to somebody. It wasn't just a waste of your time, me rambling around. If there's anything else you'd like to know, any questions, maybe about the cameras I'm using, I didn't really bring that up. I guess I just said they were security cameras. But anything else I might have forgot, just leave it in the comments. So let's get to this summer. I don't know. I'm just rambling now. Thanks for watching.